Welcome to PeopleMap, the sales visual strategy platform. In this short video, we're going to demonstrate how to do influence mapping and action planning in the objective management module within PeopleMap. In the previous video, we learned about the four-step selling cycle. We'll be referring to the cycle throughout this tutorial. We'll start by overviewing the information we know about a sales objective. Then, we'll create the influence map. Next, we'll analyze the map and develop a strategy. And lastly, we'll devise an action plan to execute that strategy. Let's get started. You are a sales representative for a company that provides call answering solutions for primary care physicians. Your solution allows doctors' offices to automate call handling and reduce the time their office staff spends on the phone by an average of 2.5 hours per employee per day. With an average front office staff of 3 employees, that results in savings of $1,950 hours or $58,500 annually per doctor office. Your average setup engagement costs $18,000, and your call answering application, named Easy Schedule, can be licensed for only $20,000 per year. Your sales territory is Seattle, Washington, and the physicians in the area have been hesitant to embrace this new technology for fear of scaring patients to the point that they won't schedule routine office visits. The local newspaper recently published the results of a poll that suggests residents in the Seattle area are not intimidated by speaking with the computer, and in most cases they aren't even aware that they are. However, physicians in the area don't seem to be aware of this poll. Your marketing department in San Francisco has developed an email drip campaign that debunks the idea that call handling automation leads to poor office staff morale, and instead suggests quite the opposite. You have been introduced to Dr. Green at Pacific Family Practice. Dr. Green is losing 2 of her seasoned office staff to retirement this year and needs to make a decision on how to replace them by September 30th, 2017. She's pretty anxious about not having something in place by January 1st, 2018. She says she really wants to see Pacific Family Practice take a leadership position on this new technology within their community and would like to be thought of as the individual who made it happen. During your intro meeting with Dr. Jonna Green, you learned that she employs 4 front office staff. Cindy Johnson and Spencer Jones are retiring, and of the other 2, Janie Smith is a nurse who is frustrated because she has to help with call handling, and Sarah Michaels is the office manager. Janie reports directly to Dr. Green, but also has a dotted line to Sarah. Dr. Green believes things have been strained between the 2 of them because Sarah has been leaning too heavily on Janie to help out while the other 2 staffers wind down their careers. Dr. Green also mentioned 2 other doctors at the practice, Dr. John Lincoln and Dr. Joe Osborne. She believes they are both tentative about employing a new technology, but doesn't want to speak for them. She is hoping you might be able to bring them on board. She said Dr. Lincoln's main interest is maximizing profits, while Dr. Osborne is all about keeping team harmony. Dr. Lincoln is the majority shareholder of the practice and will have the final say, but Drs. Osborne and Green will both have a vote. Sarah reports to Dr. Lincoln, and they have a long and trusting relationship. Dr. Lincoln seems to lean on Sarah when it comes to running the office. Okay, that's what we know about the sales objectives so far. I'm sure we'll learn more as we engage with others at the doctor's office, but for now, we have plenty of information to start drawing our influence map. I'm going to assume you've already created the Pacific Family Practice account, this particular selling objective, and the contacts we just identified. If you need help with managing accounts, contacts, or setting objectives, please check the PeopleMap help desk for training and reference material on those topics. Now, let's start by reviewing our contacts on the Contacts tab. Here we see the 7 individuals Dr. Green mentioned in our intro meeting with her. We can see the reporting structures and the social relationships. Notice how the relationship between Janie and Sarah is troubled right now? Now, let's open up the objective and get started on the influence map. The first thing we see on our landscape is the objective vitals down in the bottom left-hand corner. It lists the close date, stage, and the amount this objective is worth. Keeping this information in mind at all times helps keep the objective focused and on target. We start out with a blank landscape. but can begin by dropping influencers on it by clicking in the Find Influencers menu. We'll drag over all of the buying influencers to our landscape and start to organize them in a way that makes sense for this objective. Now that I have them placed on the landscape, I'm going to group the office staff so readers of this landscape know who they are. I'll give it a color and a label. Dr. Green hinted that she wanted to be seen as a champion of this effort, so I'm going to tag her with the champion persona. I'll also give her a thumbs up vote because of her enthusiasm in driving this objective. Next, I'll tag each of the 3 doctors as decision makers since Dr. Green said they'd all get a vote in the final decision. Near the end of our meeting with Dr. Green, she mentioned that Sarah and Dr. Lincoln have a long and trusting relationship and that Dr. Lincoln seems to trust Sarah when it comes to running the front office. I'm going to add some influence to the relationship line between Sarah and Dr. Lincoln. This influence may become really important if Sarah isn't a supporter of our solution. At this point, I believe we've successfully drawn our influencer map. Let's start analyzing it and come up with a high-level strategy. I'm going to start by dragging out a text box so that we can document the strategy. We'll start by focusing in on what we know about the decision makers at this point. We know what each of their business objectives are, and we want to make sure that we pay attention to each one of those, as they will likely go a long way in winning us the deal. Okay. Next, we're going to focus in on the people who influence our decision makers. We show that Sarah has influence over Dr. Lincoln, which is indicated by the 2 golden icons. We need to make sure that Sarah doesn't negatively influence Dr. Lincoln. We need to make sure that she's in favor of the solution or is at least neutral to it, so I'm going to add that to the strategy as well. Lastly, we know that the physicians in the area have been hesitant to embrace this new kind of technology for fear of scaring patients, to the point that they won't even schedule routine office visits. We need to address this so that all 3 of our decision makers are comfortable moving forward with our solution. Great! At this point in the sales cycle, I believe this is our winning formula for the sales objective. We may need to make some changes as new information arises, but this is a really good start and gives us a lot of direction on how to proceed with the effort. I'm just going to quickly label this as our strategy. If we can successfully address each of these points in our strategy, we should win the deal. Let's break this strategy down and start planning our next steps. Action planning is managed in the Plan button over on the right-hand side of the screen. Clicking on it will open up the action plan for this objective. I'm just going to go through our strategic points and create next steps as necessary. Starting with strategy point number 1. Work on meeting Dr. Osborne's business outcome in keeping team harmony. We know the current solution has been adding to the tension between Janie and Sarah, so we need to touch base with Janie to validate the Dr. Green's hunch that she'll appreciate the reduction in time that she spends on the phone and be able to focus more of her time on her nursing duties. I'm going to go ahead and create a new activity for that. Next, we should find some time with Sarah to introduce this objective and explore how it can address some of her pain points. Since we don't know how she'll react, let's also invite Dr. Green to make the introduction. Dr. Green can position it with Sarah appropriately. Let's start there for strategic point number 1 and see what we learned from these 2 engagements. Moving on to strategic point number 2, work on meeting Dr. Lincoln's business outcome, maximizing profit. Let's meet with him to see what else we can learn about his needs and present him a breakdown of the numbers. We believe that practice should see a reduction in the labor costs of about $20,000 in the first year and $38,000 in each succeeding year after that. If Dr. Green's comment about maximizing profit is correct, these numbers should get his attention quickly. On strategic point number 3, address Dr. Green's business outcome, have a working solution in place by January 1st. Nothing much we can do here except to be mindful of time. We need to make sure we give ourselves enough time to install and train the scheduling app in Q4 of 2017 so that it's in place by January 1st. On strategic point number 4, make sure Sarah is in favor or at least neutral to the objective. When we meet with Sarah and Dr. Green, let's be sure to keep in mind that Sarah has Dr. Lincoln's ear. Let's learn as much as we can from Sarah during our time with her. We might be able to set her up to look like a hero to Dr. Lincoln if she is willing to embrace this initiative. On the last strategic point, make sure our 3 physicians are comfortable with the new technology and how their patients will react to it. This one's easy. We have 2 pieces of content ready to go that will begin to make our case. The first is to create a task for us to kick off the marketing email drip campaign. The second is to review the local newspapers poll with each of them. Let's introduce it to Dr. Green during our meeting with her and Sarah. And we'll include it in the list of things that we present with our meeting with Dr. Lincoln. We'll get it in front of Dr. Osborne the first time we meet with him. At this point, we're in really good shape. We have our map drawn, and we're able to develop a pretty straightforward strategy from it. We have our next steps in place, and now it's just time to engage with our influencers and see what additional information we can learn from them. We'll continue following this cycle until we've completed the sales cycle and the decision makers have made their final decision. Each step along the way, we'll be able to add a little more information to our map: votes, personas, influence, and additional buying influencers. Each piece of information helps us to determine next steps. Thanks for taking the time to view this short tutorial. To find more information about PeopleMap, please visit the Help Desk by clicking on Help in the top right-hand corner of the application.